We are jumping right into a moment in history that really it defines how we think about technology and change.
We're going to England,
Hmm.
the early 1800s. The air is thick with steam and rebellion.
We're talking about the Luddites, the legendary machine smashers.
And if you've heard that word Luddite, today, it's usually not a compliment, right?
No, it's like an insult for someone who can't use an app or something.
Exactly. But we're here to kind of clear back the historical record.
That's the mission. This isn't about people who are just afraid of new gadgets.
No, it's about skilled workers fighting for their survival, for their dignity.
So the real conflict wasn't just human versus machine.
It was about who gets to benefit from that machine.
Okay, so to get this, we have to understand the enormous shift that was happening.
We're at the very start of the Industrial Revolution, and it kicks off in Great Britain.
And before this, in the late 18th century, how was everything made?
Slowly
Mm-hmm.
and by hand.
Yeah.
From the clothes you wore to the tools you used, it was all done in small workshops or even right in people's homes.
So for textiles, which is really where this story explodes, you didn't have these huge factories.
Not at all. You had what was called the domestic industry.
Right, the putting out system.
Exactly. Imagine a skilled weaver. They didn't punch a clock.
Mhm.
A merchant would put out the raw wool or cotton to them.
And they'd work on it from home, on their own loom.
Right. And this sounds like a pretty good setup for the worker.
Yeah, they had flexibility. They were masters of their craft.
They were highly respected artisans. They set their own pace, controlled their schedule, and they took immense pride in the quality of their work.
And it took years to get that good, right? An apprenticeship.
Oh yeah, years of training. It was a real skill, a trade often passed down through generations, and it earned them a decent, stable living. They had independence.
They were basically small business owners, a
Yeah.
huge contrast to what was coming.
Well, here's the problem. That traditional skilled work, it was slow.
And the factory owners wanted speed.
They wanted speed, and they got it, thanks to the steam engine.
And this is where the villain of the story enters, the power loom.
It wasn't just a slightly better hand tool. This thing was a mechanical monster powered by steam or water.
And it just changed the entire equation.
Completely. A single power loom was so much faster, so much more tireless than any person could ever be.
Yeah.
Owners could just pump out cloth.
And here's the real killer for the skilled weaver, right? You didn't need a master craftsman to run it.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Operating these new machines didn't require that decade of training, so factory owners could hire unskilled workers.
Often women and children.
Yes, and pay them rock-bottom wages.
So if you're a skilled weaver, your entire life's work is suddenly worthless.
You can't compete, not on speed, not on price.
Yeah.
Your independence is gone, and your family is facing, actual starvation.
It's a total economic shockwave. They weren't just losing a job.
They were losing their identity, their social standing, everything.
So let's talk about that desperation, because by the early 1800s, this was a life or death situation.
The economic conditions were catastrophic. You have to remember, Britain was in these long, expensive wars with France.
Which drove up food prices.
Sky high. Especially for bread. At the very same time, the machines are driving their wages down. It's a perfect storm.
So the cost of food is doubling, but your pay is getting cut in half. What do?
People just felt abandoned. They saw the factory owners as greedy, choosing profit from these cold machines over actual human lives.
And there was no safety net, nothing like today.
Zero. If an owner fired you for a machine, there was no law, no union, nothing to stop him. That feeling of unfairness is what drove them to act.
And they needed a way to organize to fight back, which is how we get this mythical leader, Ned Ludd.
Right. The legend says he was a young apprentice who, in a fit of rage, smashed 2 knitting frames.
But historians are pretty sure he never actually existed.
Highly unlikely. But it was a brilliant strategic move.
Why? What did the name do for them?
General Ludd became a symbol, a rallying cry. Protesters would sign their warning letters with his name.
It's like perfect operational security.
Exactly. It gave them a unified identity, but protected their real identities from the authorities.
And suddenly, the term Luddite meant anyone in this fight. It connected all these scattered groups of workers across England.
They felt like they were part of a single, huge army.
Okay, so they have their symbol, but how do you organize an army when the actual army is looking for you?
In total secrecy. They held meetings at night in really remote places.
Like out on the moors or in the woods.
Far away from any towns or police patrols. And they were very careful. They used secret handshakes, passwords that changed all the time.
So if you didn't know the password, you were out.
Immediately. You were assumed to be a spy.
Yeah.
This shows you it wasn't just some random mob. It was organized.
Let's talk about the raids.
They were fast and dramatic. They'd march to a factory under the cover of absolute darkness, often wearing masks or with blackened faces so they couldn't be identified.
And what was their weapon of choice?
A heavy sledgehammer they called Enoch. Yeah, and there was a bit of irony to it. They joked that they were using a product of the industrial age, a big iron hammer, to destroy another product of the industrial age.
And it wouldn't take much to wreck one of those looms, I imagine.
Not at all. A few good swings from Enoch on the delicate gears and moving parts, and the machine was totally useless. They knew exactly where to hit.
But was it just random destruction, smashing everything in sight?
No, and that's a key point. It was highly targeted. They usually ignored other property.
They just went for the machines.
Only the machines that were taking their jobs. They were sending a very clear message. Get rid of these and go back to paying us a fair wage.
But the more successful they were, the more terrified the government became.
Absolutely. The British government was watching all this and thinking of one thing.
The French Revolution.
Exactly. Which had only happened a couple of decades earlier. They were terrified this was the start of their own violent revolution.
So what was their response?
There was a massive military response. They sent thousands of soldiers into the industrial counties.
Thousands.
It was a larger deployment than the army Britain had fighting Napoleon in some campaigns at the time.
Wait, hold on. They thought their own textile workers were a bigger threat than Napoleon's army.
That's how scared they were. Shows you the level of crisis. They were determined to crush this.
And they backed up the soldiers with a terrifying new law in 1812, the Frame-Breaking Act.
One of the harshest laws imaginable. It made destroying industrial machines a capital crime.
A capital crime, so punishable by death.
Punishable by death. Smashing a piece of machinery was now as serious as murder in the eyes of the law. It was purely meant to intimidate them.
And the conflict turned deadly.
It did. The tension boiled over in the spring of 1812 at a place called Rawfolds Mill in Yorkshire. The owner had armed guards.
And when the Luddites attacked,
There was a shootout. The guards killed two of the protesters. It was one of the first major losses of life for the movement.
and the violence just escalated from there.
A few months later, a group of Luddites ambushed and assassinated a particularly hated mill owner named William Horsfall. That act shocked the nation.
And the government came down hard.
Mass trials in York. The results were catastrophic for the Luddites. Many were executed publicly. Others were sentenced to transportation.
Which meant being shipped off to prison colonies in Australia.
Forever. Separated from their families, their homes. That combination of military pressure and the trials. It basically broke the movement by 1813.
So, on the surface, it looks like they failed. The machines weren't stopped.
They absolutely failed to stop technological progress, no question. The Industrial Revolution rolled on.
But there was an unseen victory in all this, wasn't there?
There was. They forced everyone to pay attention to the horrible conditions in those factories. Their fight made the human cost of industrialization impossible to ignore.
So they forced the conversation.
Exactly. And that pressure eventually helped lead to the very first labor laws, rules about working hours, child labor, safety.
They showed that workers had a collective voice.
A voice that could challenge even the most powerful owners. And that spirit of organization, that's the foundation of the modern trade union.
So let's bring this back to today. We still use the word Luddite.
But we use it wrong. We use it for anyone who dislikes new technology.
And that misses the entire point.
It really does. The original Luddites weren't against technology itself. They were fighting against how that technology was being used to take away their wages and their dignity.
It was never about the tool. It was about who held the power.
And that's why their story is so relevant. We're in our own massive technological shift right now with AI and automation.
We're facing the exact same questions. How do we innovate without leaving huge numbers of people behind?
The Luddite story is a powerful reminder that progress always has a human side. And the fight over technology is always, always a fight over fairness.
Keep thinking about those connections between the past and your own world today.
See you next time.